When you begin to search for the truth of who you are, the very first thing you must come face to face with is the understanding that consciousness is the only reality. Everything you touch, everything you see, everything you experience has its origin not in the external world, but in the invisible realm of your awareness. The chair you sit on, the clothes you wear, the house you live in, all of these are secondary expressions, shadows cast by something far more fundamental. That fundamental essence is your own consciousness. You may believe that events happen to you, that circumstances fall upon you from outside forces, that life is dictated by chance or by the will of others. But once you grasp that consciousness precedes and shapes all that is seen, you begin to awaken to the realization that life is not happening to you, but unfolding from you. Think of a seed. Within that tiny seed lies the invisible pattern of the tree that will eventually sprout. Without that inner life, the outer form cannot come into being. Consciousness functions in the same way. It is the seed from which your world emerges. Before a man becomes wealthy, before he becomes educated, before he becomes anything in the eyes of the world, he must first entertain the awareness of being it. That awareness, though invisible, becomes the root out of which every visible fact grows. To say that consciousness is the only reality is to acknowledge that nothing exists for you, unless you are conscious of it. A melody you have never heard does not exist in your world until it enters your awareness. A country you have never visited, though existing for others, is a mere abstraction for you until you give it your attention. Life, in this sense, is personal, filtered through the lens of your own consciousness. When you wake each morning, you step into the theater of your awareness. The stage may look unchanged from the day before, but it continues to rearrange itself according to the deep impressions you hold within. What you habitually accept as true about yourself, what you rehearse in the silence of your mind, eventually appears in your outer world. This is why the great task of life is not to manipulate circumstances, but to transform the state of consciousness from which those circumstances flow. To know this is to unlock the secret of creation. For when you realize that consciousness is the only reality, you stop giving power to conditions and start reclaiming your own creative power. Most people live unaware of this truth. They believe they are shaped by family, by society, by fate, by luck. They do not see that the world reflects their inner assumptions. They complain about poverty, yet inwardly they never detach from the identity of being poor. They pray for health, yet secretly believe they are bound to sickness. They hope for success, yet continue to see themselves as unworthy. In each case, consciousness betrays their outer cry. It is not enough to want something. It must be assumed in the depth of your being. For what you are conscious of being becomes your reality. This is the great law of life. Now this brings us to the next great revelation, the secret of the words I am. Before you describe yourself as rich or poor, strong or weak, loved or unloved, you first say I am. These two simple words are the root of your being. They are the foundation upon which every description of yourself rests. You may say I am tired, I am happy, I am unlucky, I am blessed. Whatever follows these words takes root in your consciousness and begins to form your world. This is why the ancients declared the name of God to be I am. When Moses asked for the name of the Eternal, the answer came I am that I am. In that moment the profound truth was revealed that the very essence of God is your own awareness of being. Consider how often you use the words I am throughout the day. You declare I am late, I am hungry, I am worried, I am afraid. Each of these statements, spoken casually, affirms a state of consciousness. The more you repeat it, the deeper it impresses itself upon your inner being, and the more faithfully your outer world mirrors it. If you would change your life, you must begin by changing what you attach to I am. Instead of attaching it to weakness, begin to attach it to strength. Instead of attaching it to lack, attach it to abundance. Instead of attaching it to rejection, attach it to love. It is not enough to chant words without conviction. The secret lies in feeling the reality of what you affirm. When you say I am successful, you must feel the atmosphere of success surrounding you. When you say I am loved, you must let the warmth of that love fill your heart. The words themselves are like keys, but the feeling you attach to them is what unlocks the door of manifestation. Many repeat affirmations with no results because they say the words, but remain in the old feeling of doubt and fear. To truly claim a new identity, you must marry the words I am with the feeling of being it. This union of word and feeling is the act of creation. The power of I am cannot be overstated. It is the invisible hand shaping the clay of your life. A man who continually says I am unlucky will find that events arrange themselves to confirm his claim. Another who says I am blessed, even in the face of difficulty, will watch as the world bends to prove him right. This is not superstition. It is the law of consciousness in action. Life does not respond to what you wish for, but to what you claim with your I am. Every condition of your life can be traced back to some I am that you have assumed, whether knowingly or unknowingly. When you understand this, you begin to take responsibility for your words and thoughts. No longer do you speak carelessly about yourself. No longer do you attach I am to failure or misery. You begin to guard the door of your mind and select with care the qualities you claim. You learn that by saying I am strong, I am confident, I am guided, you impress upon your consciousness new seeds which must, in time, blossom into facts. Just as surely as the seed of an apple will yield an apple tree, the seed of I am wealthy will yield wealth, the seed of I am free will yield freedom. The world may scoff at such simplicity, but the wise know that the simplicity is the very genius of the law. Children instinctively declare I am this or I am that and enter into their make-believe with full conviction, and in their play they reveal the creative secret. For to assume and to feel is to create. The adult forgets this and begins to define himself by what the world says. He says I am limited because others tell him so. I am unworthy because his past seems to prove it. I am small because the world appears so vast. Yet in all of this he has forgotten that the I am in him is the very name of God, infinite and unconditioned. The task before every man and woman is to strip away the false garments they have placed upon I am. You are not I am afraid. You are not I am sick. You are not I am a failure. These are temporary states, passing clouds across the sky of your being. Who you truly are is the pure, unconditioned I am, eternal and limitless. When you return to that root and choose anew what you attach to it, you begin to reshape your destiny. You move from being a slave of circumstances to being the master of creation. Reflect upon your day and notice how often you misuse the power of I am. You may find that most of your speech is unconsciously negative, reinforcing the very states you wish to escape. But the moment you become aware of this, you hold the key to transformation. For awareness itself is the power to change. Begin where you are. Instead of I am tired, try I am renewed. Instead of I am worried, try I am at peace. Instead of I am poor, try I am provided for. At first it may feel strange, as though you are lying to yourself. But remember, you are not describing the world as it appears. You are declaring the world as it is to become. Every great change begins within. The man who one day stands before the world as a leader once said I am worthy of leading, long before the world acknowledged it. The woman who rises from sickness to health first said I am whole long before her body confirmed it. The artist who brings beauty into form first said I am creative long before the world saw his art. Always it begins with I am. To find out who you are, you must return again and again to these two truths. Consciousness is the only reality, and the great secret is I am. Together they form the foundation of all transformation. Without the recognition of consciousness as the cause, you will continue to wrestle with shadows, blaming conditions and people for your fate. Without the recognition of I am as the root of your identity, you will continue to misuse the name of God and call forth experiences you do not desire. But with these truths alive in you, you stand at the threshold of mastery. For you now know that the world you see is none other than yourself pushed out. And the words I am are the creative command by which you fashion your destiny. When you begin to grasp that consciousness is the only reality, and that the great secret lies in your use of the words I am, you naturally move into the next revelation, which is that man becomes what he assumes. This is one of the most practical truths you can ever encounter, for it tells you that your life is not governed by chance, nor is it controlled by the opinions of others, nor is it fixed by the circumstances of your birth. It is shaped by the states of consciousness you deliberately or unconsciously assume. To assume is not simply to wish or to daydream. To assume is to inwardly accept something as true, to clothe yourself with a feeling of reality so convincing that the outer world has no choice but to conform to it. The law of assumption declares that what you persist in assuming with feeling will harden into fact. This means that if you constantly assume yourself to be a failure, the world will faithfully reflect it. No matter how many opportunities pass your way, if you assume yourself to be unloved, even surrounded by affection, you will still interpret everything through that inner state and live out its bitter fruit. But if you assume yourself to be prosperous, even in the midst of lack, you begin to walk differently, think differently, act differently, and soon the world rearranges itself to support that inner conviction. It may not happen overnight, but it is as certain as the rising of the sun. For assumption, held with feeling, is creative. Think of an actor stepping onto the stage. He assumes a role. And though the audience knows he is not truly that character, in the moment of the performance he lives it, breathes it, embodies it so fully that the illusion becomes reality for everyone watching. Life works in the same way, but here is the difference. In your own stage, the role you assume is not temporary. It becomes the very pattern of your experience. You are constantly playing a part, and the world is constantly responding to the role you inwardly accept. Change the assumption, and the play of life must change. This is why so many prayers seem unanswered. People pray from the state of not having. They beg for health while assuming themselves to be sick. They cry for wealth while inwardly holding on to the feeling of poverty. They long for love while never leaving the assumption of being alone. To truly create change, one must rise into the assumption of already being what one desires. You do not pray for something as if it is absent. You pray from the state of it already being yours. You assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and by dwelling in that state, you make it real. It is not the outer effort that changes the world, but the inner shift of consciousness. A man who assumes himself to be confident will walk into a room and attract opportunities, while another who assumes himself to be timid will close doors before they are even opened. The difference is not in the environment, but in the assumption each carries. One inwardly believes, I am worthy of being heard, and the world echoes back agreement. The other inwardly believes, I am unimportant, and the world mirrors it without fail. What you assume, you become. This brings us to the great creative power by which all assumptions take form, the imagination. Many believe imagination is a child's toy, useful for play, but not for serious matters. Yet imagination is the very workshop of creation. Everything man has ever brought into being first lived in his imagination. The house you dwell in, the device you hold in your hand, the book you read, all were once only imagined. Nothing enters the world of fact without first being conceived in the world of imagination. When you close your eyes and dare to see differently, you are not escaping reality. You are entering the creative realm where reality is shaped. Imagination creates reality. This is not metaphor but literal law. What you vividly imagine with feeling must in time appear in your world. If you constantly rehearse scenes of failure, rejection, and misfortune in your mind, you are sowing seeds that will blossom into corresponding events. If you instead persist in imagining scenes that imply the fulfillment of your desire, you set in motion the forces that will bring them into being. The outer world is nothing more than imagination objectified. You may say, but I did not imagine this difficulty I now face. Yet if you trace back honestly, you will see that at some level you entertained this state that gave it birth. Perhaps you dwelt on fear of failure until it became fact. Perhaps you repeated to yourself stories of unworthiness until the world proved you right. Life is mercilessly exact in this way, not to punish, but to reveal to you the power of your own imagination. The moment you change what you imagine, you change the seed, and the harvest must change. To use imagination deliberately is to exercise the divine power within you. Picture yourself as you wish to be, not as the world says you are, and persist in that picture until it feels natural. Do not wait for evidence before you believe, for evidence is the last to appear. Believe first, assume first, imagine first, and then allow the world to catch up. When a sculptor looks at a block of marble, he sees the statue already complete within it. He imagines what others cannot see, and by faithful persistence his vision takes form. You must do the same with your life. Look at the present conditions and see beyond them. Imagine the self you long to be and assume it as true, and in due season it will stand before you as fact. The secret is in feeling the reality of your imaginal act. It is not enough to think about it coldly. You must enter into the scene, smell the air, hear the voices, touch the objects, feel the emotions as if it were already happening. This active imaginative experience plants the seed so deeply that the subconscious accepts it as reality, and once accepted, it must externalize. The subconscious does not argue, it simply brings forth what is impressed upon it. Imagination, fused with feeling, is the way you impress it. There are those who dismiss this as fanciful, yet they themselves are living proof of it. The anxious man imagines disaster again and again, and eventually his worst fears come to pass. The hopeful child imagines success and often stumbles into it effortlessly. Both are using the same power, one unconsciously and destructively, the other instinctively and positively. The question is not whether you use imagination, but whether you use it wisely. If you wish to transform your life, begin tonight in the stillness of your room. Close your eyes and create a scene that would be true if your desire were already fulfilled. If you seek love, imagine holding the hand of your partner. If you seek success, Imagine hearing words of congratulations. If you seek freedom, imagine yourself walking where you long to go. Let it be short and vivid, a simple moment that implies your wish fulfilled. Enter that scene until it feels real, and then drift into sleep. The subconscious, impressed by the imaginal act, will bring forth the outer equivalent. Assumption and imagination are inseparable. You assume by imagining, and you imagine by assuming. Together they form the core of creation. When you deliberately assume the state of your desire fulfilled, and reinforce it through vivid imagination, you set the law into motion. The outer world must, by its very nature, rearrange itself to reflect the inner conviction. It may take days, it may take weeks, it may take months, but the result is certain. For nothing can resist the creative power of sustained assumption impressed upon imagination. This is the path to true freedom. You are not at the mercy of circumstance. You are not bound by the limitations of your past. You are free to assume anew, to imagine differently, to call forth a new self from the depth of your being. Every master of life has done this. They did not wait for evidence. They created the evidence by first assuming and imagining their ideal. What they held inwardly with conviction, they experienced outwardly in fact. The same power that worked for them works for you. For it is not reserved for the few, but is the inheritance of all. The moment you begin to understand that imagination creates reality, you will see more clearly that the world outside is not some separate realm, independent and untouched by your inner life. The outer world is a mirror, faithfully reflecting the inner states you carry within yourself. This is one of the most liberating, and at the same time most sobering truths you can ever encounter. For if life is a mirror, then everything you experience is showing you something of your own consciousness. It means you are never a victim of circumstance, never a helpless figure tossed about by forces beyond your control. It means that what surrounds you is the direct outpicturing of what you assume, believe, and entertain within. Consider how a mirror functions. It does not ask questions. It does not argue. It does not choose. It simply reflects what stands before it. Life does exactly the same. It reflects to you what you most deeply assume to be true about yourself. If you feel unworthy, that sense of unworthiness will show itself in the way others treat you, in the opportunities that slip through your fingers, in the constant confirmation of rejection. If you feel confident and valued, the mirror of life will send back affirmation through encounters, chances, and doors that swing open. The outer conditions may seem to be independent of you, but when you trace them back, you discover that they are nothing more than consciousness pushed out. This is why it is never enough to complain about what you see in the outer world. Complaining about a reflection in the mirror does nothing to change your appearance. You must change the reality being reflected, and that reality is your inner state. You can move to a new city, change careers, seek new relationships, but if the inner state remains the same, you will soon recreate the same conditions. This is why people often say they feel cursed or doomed to repeat cycles. The truth is not that life is cruel, but that they are carrying the same assumptions into every new environment, and the mirror never fails to give them back what they inwardly accept. If you wish to know what you really believe about yourself, do not look at what you tell yourself in words. Look at the life you are living. Look at the patterns that keep appearing. Life is showing you the content of your inner conversations, your hidden feelings, your secret assumptions. To know yourself, you must learn to read your world as you would a book. Every page reveals a belief you have held. Every chapter unfolds a state you have inhabited. Some of these may delight you, others may disturb you, but all are there to teach you that you are the author. When you truly accept that the outer world is a mirror, you stop wasting energy trying to fix appearances. You begin instead to turn within, adjusting the inner state until the reflection shifts. If you long for respect, assume the state of being worthy of respect and feel it so deeply that it becomes natural. Soon the world will reflect it back. If you desire abundance, assume the state of being abundantly supplied. The world will echo it with unexpected resources and open doors. Nothing can resist this law because the mirror has no choice but to reflect what stands before it. And yet, how do you know what to assume, what to choose, what to claim? This leads us to the next truth, that desire is the voice of God. The longings that rise within you are not random, nor are they shallow impulses. They are the whispers of your deeper self, calling you toward the fulfillment of your destiny. When you feel the pull of a dream, the ache of a possibility, the fire of a vision, you are hearing the voice of the infinite speaking within you. It is not an enemy to be suppressed. It is a guide to be trusted. Desire reveals what you are meant to express. A bird feels the desire to fly, and by that desire its wings grow strong. A seed feels the desire to push upward, and by that desire it bursts through the soil into the light. In the same way, when you feel the desire for love, for freedom, for expansion, for creativity, it is not vanity. It is life itself urging you to awaken to a greater version of yourself. The desire itself is proof that the state you long for already exists within you, for you could not desire what you were not capable of expressing. Too often people are taught to mistrust desire. They are told that to want more is greed, that to long for beauty or wealth or fulfillment is selfish. But look closely and you will see that the very energy of creation moves through desire. Without desire, nothing grows, nothing changes, nothing expands. It is only when desire is twisted into obsession or pursued without awareness of its divine origin that it leads astray. In its purest form, desire is God speaking to you, saying, "This is what I have prepared for you. This is what you are ready to embody." When you feel a genuine desire, do not dismiss it. Honor it as a sacred message. Ask yourself, what would it feel like if this were already fulfilled? And then step into that feeling as though it were your present reality. This is the way to align with the voice of God within. For desire is not given to torment you. It is given to awaken you. It is the invitation to assume a new state, to enter a new dimension of being. The desire points the way, and your imagination supplies the means. Think of the many times in your life when a desire pushed you beyond your limits. Perhaps you longed for knowledge, and that desire led you to books, teachers, and experiences that transformed you. Perhaps you longed for companionship, and that desire drew someone into your life who changed everything. Perhaps you longed for freedom, and that desire gave you the courage to step out of a situation that no longer served you. Each time, the desire was not meaningless. It was the unfolding of your deeper nature. When you resist desire, you resist your own expansion. When you embrace it, you enter into partnership with the divine. The key is to distinguish between passing whims and the desires that truly burn within you. The shallow whim fades quickly, but the true desire persists. It returns again and again, knocking at the door of your heart until you finally open. That desire is your calling, and when you step into it with faith, the entire universe conspires to bring it into expression. The world, being a mirror, will reflect not only your assumptions, but also the desires you honor. If you push them away, life will mirror that frustration. If you embrace them, life will mirror that expansion. Desire is the seed, assumption is the soil, imagination is the sun and rain, and the harvest is the life you live. Everything begins with that sacred stirring inside you. When you dare to say yes to it, you align yourself with the highest purpose of your being. You may find that the moment you embrace a true desire, obstacles appear. This is not to discourage you but to test your persistence. Just as a seed must break through hard ground before reaching the light, your desire must push through resistance before it flowers in the world. Do not mistake resistance for denial. It is only the natural process of growth. If you remain faithful to the inner conviction, the outer must yield. For desire is not a false promise. It is a prophecy of what you are capable of becoming. When you put these two truths together, the mirror of the world and the voice of desire, you see the beauty of the law. The world is showing you what you currently assume, and desire is showing you what you are meant to assume. The reflection tells you where you are, and the longing tells you where you are going. Life is not random at all. It is a precise conversation between your inner states and the events that surround you. By reading the mirror and honoring the desire, you learn to navigate your destiny with confidence and grace. There comes a point in the journey of self-discovery where you realize that all the striving, all the noise, all the constant reaching outward for answers must give way to silence. For it is in silence that the great mysteries are revealed. The world is loud, and its voices call to you day and night, demanding your attention, feeding you images of fear, distraction, and doubt. But the true power does not reside in the noise of the world. It resides in the quiet of your own imagination. When you withdraw from the clamor and sink into silence, you find that the still small voice within speaks more clearly than 1,000 external teachers. It is there, in the depth of silence, that you touch your eternal self. Silence is not mere absence of sound. It is the deliberate turning away from the outer evidence of the senses, and the entrance into the inner chamber where imagination reigns supreme. In silence, you no longer look to the outer world for validation. You are no longer deceived by appearances. Instead, you begin to commune with the reality that precedes all appearances. Here you can assume what you wish to be without contradiction. Here you can feel the joy of your fulfilled desire without interruption. Silence multiplies the power of assumption because it removes the interference. of doubt and fear that so easily creep in through outer evidence. The great secret of transformation is learning to enter silence and live there long enough for your new state to take root. Most people rush back to the noise of the world too soon. They imagine for a moment, but then the senses contradict them, and they abandon their assumption. But when you hold to silence, when you dwell in the felt reality of your desire fulfilled until it becomes natural, the outer world must eventually bow to your inner conviction. Silence is the womb of creation. Everything you will ever manifest must first be conceived in this sacred quiet. Think of a seed planted in the earth. The soil does not shout. It does not announce to the world what is happening beneath the surface. In silence, the seed takes root, expands, and prepares to break forth into visible form. In the same way, your imaginal acts, nurtured in silence, grow in secret until they appear as facts in your life. This is why those who master silence are never troubled by appearances. They know that beneath the surface something powerful is unfolding. They trust the unseen process, and in that trust they rest in quiet confidence. Silence is also the place where you discover your true self beyond all labels and roles. When you are still, when you detach from the endless stream of thoughts and judgments, you encounter the pure awareness that says simply, I am. That awareness is your eternal identity. It is unconditioned, limitless, untouched by the ups and downs of life. You may attach countless names and descriptions to it, but in silence you see that none of these define you. You are the one who gives life to all states. You are the consciousness that wears many masks, but remains unchanged beneath them all. As you deepen in silence, you begin to see that the self you have been seeking has always been here. You no longer chase after validation from the world, for you have found the wellspring of peace within, and from that peace rises a new way of being in the world. You move calmly, you speak with authority, you act with clarity, for you know that the outer is only a reflection of the inner, and the inner is mastered in silence. This brings us naturally to the final truth, that you are already what you seek. For all the striving of life, all the searching, all the longing, eventually leads to this simple but staggering realization. You are not becoming something you are not. You are awakening to what you have always been. The very qualities you chase after in the world are already alive in you, waiting to be acknowledged. The love you seek is already in your heart. The abundance you desire is already in your consciousness. The strength, the freedom, the creativity, all of it is part of your eternal being. The great paradox of life is that man spends years chasing what he already possesses. He runs after wealth, not knowing that by assuming wealth within he could manifest it without. He begs for love, not realizing that love flows from the recognition of his own worth. He prays for wisdom, not seeing that the source of wisdom is the very consciousness by which he prays. The journey of self-discovery is not a journey of acquiring, but of remembering. It is the uncovering of a treasure long buried but never lost. Imagine a king who leaves his palace and wanders the streets as a beggar, forgetting who he is. He suffers hunger, cold, and rejection, though all the while the palace stands waiting, filled with riches and servants. When someone finally reminds him of his true identity, he does not need to earn the throne. He only needs to remember it and return. So it is with you. You are not called to earn divinity. You are called to awaken to it. You are not required to strive endlessly for fulfillment. You are required to accept that you already are fulfilled in your essential nature. When you realize that you are already what you seek, you stop chasing shadows. You stop postponing your joy until some future event. You begin to live from the fullness of being now, and in that state, all the outer forms of your desire begin to appear naturally, not as something you are desperately grasping for, but as reflections of the wholeness you already embody. This is why those who awaken to their true self often find that blessings flow into their life effortlessly. They have ceased striving and started remembering, and life mirrors that ease. To know that you are already what you seek is to see through the illusion of lack. Lack is only the refusal to recognize what is already yours. When you accept that abundance is within you, the outer world rearranges to supply it. When you accept that love is your nature, relationships form to reflect it. When you accept that wisdom is your essence, answers rise within you effortlessly. Everything you have been searching for is hidden in the I am within you. To find it, you need not travel far. You need only awaken. Silence and remembrance walk hand in hand. In silence you strip away the false identities and hear the whisper of your true nature. And in that whisper you realize you have been whole all along. The search ends not in acquiring something new, but in the recognition that the treasure was always within you. What you have been seeking through striving and struggle has been quietly waiting for your acknowledgement. And when you finally see it, life itself takes on a new meaning. For you recognize that you are not a creature struggling for survival. You are the creator awakening to your power.